Hello. This will be an aggregate response for the 13th, the 14th, and today, the 15th. And it's around 9 o'clock in the morning. It's already up to 30 degrees. It rained heavily but briefly yesterday, which decreased the temperature for about 30 seconds. And here we are. So, the 13th was a question I was really looking forward to for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it would build on older videos that I've made, and there's one video called Paradigm Shifts in Gaming, and I'll put the link in the corner as a card and down in the description box. And if you're interested, you can take a look at that. What I'll do for the 13th is talk about it in a different context a few years later. Some evolution that we had in gaming was, in the beginning we didn't want to buy anything. I'm sure that was in part reinforced by not really having access to anything to buy. And this, of course, would become wanting to buy everything. And that would be reinforced by having access to things. But that speaks to a certain approach to gaming, right? Looking for the answers in yourself versus looking for the answers in the text. And I think that continues in the hobby today. The personal comfort you have, looking for the exact answer to a specific situation from the mind of the designer, or taking the design tools given in the game and wanting to make your own rulings on things. I think that's interesting. This ties in with a lot of different ways that we play, such as following a published scenario, turning to the text, or improvising from an amount of material, whether that be improvising from the agendas of NPCs, or improvising from just the setting, or improvising from what the game mechanics themselves tell you, and so on and so forth. These are evolutions, in a sense. They can also be just experiments. Let's try it this way, let's try it that way. And when I see the word evolution, how has your gaming evolved? It strikes me that these are maybe not permanent changes, but they are steps in your growth, the things that you will look for, the things that you will try to do from then on. And although they might be caused by outside forces, such as schedules, or having to play online, or only being able to play once a month, or stuff like that. There may be outside forces. Given your choices, these are what you are. So in that light, evolution in gaming is a pretty significant thing, and it doesn't matter if you just started gaming recently or if you've been gaming for 30, 40 years. Right? Play evolves. Our conceptions of things evolve. When I started, I was mostly interested in the challenges, in the encounters. It's getting too hot in that direction. So we would create situations. We would put the players in situations and see if they could solve them with the characters. And this has evolved over time to instead focusing on the character, right? Putting the character in challenging or stressful situations. And this is something that I do. This is a way that I have evolved. So there's just as much challenge. It's about just as much risk, right? And players do need to assess those risks and see if there is any reward attached. But the focus has moved from, let's create this interesting situation that is hard, and instead, let's try and really understand this character and the people that they are connected to. Let's see what happens as they have to manage their resources, manage their attention, manage their activities over time, right? How does that great juggling act continue and progress? And I find a great deal of satisfaction from that, as much as I did as a kid starting out with exploring a dungeon. It's not a dungeon anymore. Now it's relationships and other problems, but it's the same idea. Evolution. I haven't changed into a different creature entirely, but then day 14 was to talk about, a failure that became awesome. And I thought about this for a while. I mean, there's some funny stories, there's some cool stories, all revolving around specific roles like that, or situations that are failures. But the story I wanted to tell is one I've already told. It's in recap number 14 of our Edge of the Empire campaign, and I'll link that as well. And this is near the end of face-to-face, regular face-to-face play for that campaign. And it is the moment where our Force sensitive is basically hunted down. Right? Forces that it is highly unlikely he'll be able to evade or overcome come for him and his new apprentice. It's on purpose. They understand who he is and how he thinks. They've come specifically for him, and he has walked into their trap. And all of these things. So the opportunities to escape the trap, they've passed. The opportunities to not be alone, when facing these forces, those have passed, etc. So the only person, to be clear, who feels that this was a failure is the player, right? He failed to defeat the undefeatable forces. He failed to escape the inescapable trap. So it's kind of a stretch to put this answer with this question, but bear with me. So, of course, the overwhelming forces overwhelm. That's what overwhelming forces do. Although, in the past, it has been our Force-sensitive character who has done the impossible, just not this time. But he came pretty close. And he made the difference between being, let's say, exterminated along the lines of Order 66 and being captured for turning. So he definitely got their attention. But what was more important was how hard he fought, and that it was witnessed, that it was so inspirational, that he never wavered, he never gave quarter, right? He was clear what he was standing up for: the protection of civilians, the protection of freedoms that he was in opposition to, in resistance of the Empire. And it had a monstrous effect, and I still love thinking about this moment. For me, it's the highlight of the entire campaign, that when this character falls, unconscious, subdued, the population around him rises, and the signal goes out. The Empire, right, has captured a Jedi. Come help. And I just love that moment. I love how this so-called favor plays a strong role in the galactic politics of our campaign. A moment kind of like where they were headed with The Last Jedi. Now, that story dovetails nicely into day 15. Describe a tricky RPG situation that you enjoyed. And so, I was just describing the overwhelming forces and the inescapable trap and all these things. Of course, it's a Star Wars game that we're talking about, Fantasy Flight Games, and so it's entirely possible that our Force sensitive could have escaped, could have taken down one of his opponents, then another of his opponents, that sort of thing. It would have been thrilling and exciting. It wasn't off the table. It would have been unexpected and thrilling. It didn't happen. And so I'm in that situation. I'm in the situation of, you know, this character has been on the run for years and years of real time and is an important target for the Empire. They're not fooling around. They are sending lots of resources. So we have Force-sensitive operatives, we have units of stormtroopers, and so on and so forth. All routes of escape are cut off. So, this is tricky. This isn't tricky in terms of using the game system, but it is tricky in terms of managing transparency without, you know, revealing motivations out of turn, or, you know, sliding NPC stats across the table and say, look, this is what you're facing, don't worry. But how do you get into those situations where tempers are going to run hot? So, surrounded by the whole group, people invested in the outcome, people cheering the Force sensitive on, people happy with the decision made about how the character is and will be played. That helped a lot. Being invested in everybody else's character at the table helps a lot. Then the out of character conversations started about, well, it'll be better if you're captured because that will be more like Star Wars, right? Oh, but wouldn't it be cool if you're able to overcome them? These two warring tides within our own group, echoing the war itself within the character and the player. The player definitely valued overcoming the opposition far more than he valued, escaping, just because escape in this kind of situation is what happens in a Star Wars movie. And I certainly understand. So, he needs the opportunity to fight. I need to put myself in the space of that. I need to approach my descriptions from that point of view. And I need to not be attached to an outcome. I need to not be attached to his survival. I need to not be attached to his escape. I need to not be attached to his capture. Can I do that? Can I maintain the positivity? Can I maintain the sense of fairness? Can I maintain the hope? Can I maintain my fandom of his character? These kinds of things. It's a tricky RPG situation, and as it led into the powerful story, for me at least, that I just related, I can definitely say that I very much enjoyed it. Okay, that's it for this aggregate video. Thanks for your patience for a longer one, and we'll see if we see you tomorrow.